Scott, I just mentioned during the commercial break, and I want to just say it again because I did not know, and I'm astonished, and I love facts, that, we collect $45 billion in GST. So everybody out there, we're all paying that GST, and none of that sounds like could possibly go into the school systems or hospitals or increase medical care or senior homes or what have you, because we got to pay the interest rate charges on the continued deficit and increased debt that we are incurring because of unleashed government spending. And we needed to spend during that pandemic era. There's no doubt about that. But everybody needs to be aware that governments around the world are recognizing that we can't necessarily continue to do this. We've got high inflation. All this does is feed inflation. And therefore, it's this circular reference whereby you're feeding inflation by spending too much. Then you maybe have to raise rates. It's going to cost you more, the government more. We got to get out of this continued spending program that goes nowhere.
I mean, that's exactly what's happened. Is the government has, for years, they were like, oh, interest doesn't matter because our interest rates are so low. But as soon as we've actually hit this, this printing press wall where they've printed so much money, they've caused the inflation, and there's no doubt about, in my mind, that you can't have a government drop $350 billion into an economy of new money and have it not change prices. You can't. When you have more dollars chasing the same number of goods, prices go up. Like, this is basic economics, and because of that, now we got the Bank of Canada raising rates. We have the highest rates we've seen since the 80s. We have the highest inflation rates we've seen since the 1980s. What happened in the 80s? Well, we paid through the nose on debt interest because as government bonds, as they expire and they have to go and borrow that money again, they're not getting it at 1 or 2%. They're now paying 4, 5, 6%. We're going to continue to see interest charges on our debt go up. In addition to that, by real soon within this year, the government will have doubled. Since it came into power, it will have doubled Canada's debt. So when they came into power, the debt was around $600 billion, which was very high. In fact, I don't know how many of us thought that we would ever see a time in the near future that we were going to be having a debt double that size. But yes, pandemic hit. They went crazy with the spending, spent more than a lot of other governments did. I mean, look, there were governments across the world that were spending more. We're not saying the government shouldn't have spent more during the pandemic, but they really went crazy here. Like, if you look at what other governments have done around the world, it was not even close. Canada was in like the top 5% of spending countries during the pandemic. And because of that, we're now paying the price, and we're going to pay the price not only on having higher mortgage costs for your own mortgage personally, but higher interest costs on the debt that the government has borrowed on your behalf. But in addition to that, not just the higher interest costs on the old debt, on doubling the debt. They've doubled the size of the debt, and we pay higher interest on top of that. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up the size of the debt prior to the government coming into power, because it was $600 billion. And when you think about the Canadian economy, it's a great country or a great economy with so many natural resources and different industries. But we're not a big economy. So when you have $1 trillion number associated with the Canadian economy, you better be really looking at what that number is. So it's a $1.2 trillion debt by the end of 2023. Big number. It's astonishing. When you think, again, of $1 trillion, you really think more of the US, not Canada. So people really need to be awake in terms of what that means for us, our current cost of living, and what it means for your children, and likely, if we don't get this under control, your grandchildren as well. And yet, Chrystia Freeland, finance minister, is what is she? What is her wording exactly as it relates to their fiscal plan?
Well, I mean, she said a lot of things that I roll my eyes at, because I know that it's hard to trust anything that they've said about what their plans are. Like, as we talked about earlier, going from 5 months ago, oh, we're going to be running a surplus here soon, to we're never going to balance the budget. Like, they think that this is being prudent. They think they've talked about their cutting spending. They're hoping to find a few $1 billion in savings. Well, I mean, that's it's sort of like, you've totaled your car, and then you're looking between the seat cushions, between your seats, to see if you can find a few coins to help pay for it. Like, it's what they're looking for and trying to save money on travel and consultancy costs. Well, I mean, those should be no-brainers. But it's not going to come anywhere close to what we need to pay these bills. I mean, they need to look at serious cuts. And frankly, they could have been balanced this year had they just spent at sky high levels of 2018-19. It wouldn't have been hard.
Hmm.